Luke 23, Jesus was just crucified. And so on the road, and so Luke 24, a guy named Cleopas and an unknown guy, these two guys were walking back from where Jesus was crucified. And so they were on the road back to Emmaus, and they were kind of sad. The Bible says in, I think it's Luke, it's still 23, and 13 was where it starts they're walking back, and it says the Bible says that they had their heads down. They were really sad about it.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Jesus was just crucified. They thought Jesus was the Savior, and he was a Savior. It's just he didn't save them the way they thought. Yeah. Remember, they were screaming Hosanna, which in Hosanna translated into English from Hebrew means save now. Right. So they were thinking Jesus is going to come now. He's going to redeem the name of Israel. And they saw it's like when you see like your star athlete play bad in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
You're pretty disappointed. You're like, this is not how I saw it coming. In your head, you're thinking all these dreams and fantasies, and you're thinking, all right, he's going to do this. And for those of you that play football or watch football, he's going to throw up the last second Hail Mary. Right. He's going to win the game for everybody. Everyone's going to be great. Yeah. So they just saw, quote unquote, their Savior. Right. He just was crucified. He was humiliated. Right. And so they're pretty sad about it. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and read Luke 24:32 again and see if you can pick out the theme throughout the verse. And I'm going to emphasize key words. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? So what's the thing? What's the recurring theme when I emphasize those words? Us, right? So what is us? Fellowship, relationships, communion, right? Yeah. So when they were talking with each other, that's when they realized, because Jesus said they were walking back to Emmaus, and Jesus saw them walking, he just joined right in. Yeah. And the Bible says they had no idea who he was. Right. Can you imagine walking? I mean, it's like, again, like I just said, it's like walking next to your star athlete, and you're sad. He's like, what are you guys sad about? Like, what's the problem? Yeah. And he's talking to them. He's having a conversation. They have no idea who he is. That's right. No clue. Not till later on in verse 32. Right. And so as they were talking about it, they said, it was through when we were talking with each other, we realized that what his scriptures really meant. That's when they realized, okay, he died. It wasn't that. It was he just died because he did it because of a cost. Right. You guys get what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, again, like I mentioned when I opened up, relationships are a tricky thing. Yeah. There's pain and pleasure, and it's never just one in the regards to relationships. There's never just one. You're gonna have pain and pleasure, but you got to be willing to fight through it. And so, again, speaking very intimately, I'm the type of person, I probably get this from my dad, but if I'm say I'm having a bad day, right? I had a bad day at work. I've been working overnight, so I work like 45 hours this week. So for I know you guys probably work 40, 50 hours a week, right? But for me, that's a lot of hours, right? And so I'm tired. When I get home from work, I don't want to talk to anybody. I've had a bad day. I'm dealing with customers. My boss isn't the greatest person, right? So I'm tired when I get home. So I just go straight to my room. Yeah. So I was talking to my parents last night, and they're like, "Hey, you can't do that because when you isolate yourself, it just makes everything worse. You got to be able to talk things out, get involved and whatnot, right?" Yeah. I know we say that, to our kids in school, and we say that, in the church. Yeah, you got to get hooked up. I think that's why Pastor Watch is doing the, we go around and we hug each other now because we get hooked up, get to know somebody. Right. You got to have somebody you can go to. You can call in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or "This just happened," or "Someone just passed away," or whatever. You got to get hooked up. Right. I've been learning that a lot. Is that you can't do it on your own. Not even Jesus did. I mean, he had a team of 12 people. That's a pretty big team. Yeah. Like Pastor Watson said, I need a team. I need people I can trust, I can depend on. He needs a team. You can't do it on your own. That's right. Jesus, the Son of God himself, he had a team. 12 guys. That's right. So we're going to go to flashback to what I said, or like have a little bit of a flashback. Go ahead and go back to Luke 23, and we'll start at verse 34. This is one of my all-time favorite verses in the Bible. So I think we can all relate to it. So Luke 23:34, Jesus he's actually on the cross. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And to me, this verse really means a lot because it's like he was there crucified. The Bible says that Jesus had the power to send out 12 legions of angels. Right. He had all the power in the world. Yeah. I mean, your Father is God, and you're the Son of God. So whatever you pretty much say goes. That's right. And he was there, and they're embarrassing him, they're mocking him, they're throwing things at him. The Bible says that the people were fighting for the garments that were falling from him. Right. Can you imagine? I mean, that's disrespectful. You don't go to a funeral and you're like, you're taking stuff off the body. You don't do that, right? You don't. That's understood. You don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
It blows my mind to think that when he was going into Jerusalem, the Bible says that the crowds were deafening. Like people, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine like the loudest concert or sports event you've been to, multiplied by 100. People were going nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were realizing they're hearing the miracles of what he's doing, the words he's speaking. They hadn't received stuff like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't preaching condemnation. He was coming out. He's like, man, like you put your trust in you love me. Because I love you, you love me. He goes, if you believe in me, he's like, you're going to live in paradise for the rest of your life.
Yes.
They hadn't heard that. They hadn't heard stuff like that.
Right.
And so here in verse 34, our friend, again, he's gone through all this, and they crucified him, or first they had a trial. I put quotations, and it wasn't really much of a trial. It was just more of a proper way to, put him to death anyways. It wasn't really much of a trial anyways. People betrayed him. Peter betrayed him. Judas betrayed him. I mean, he went through a lot leading up to the cross, and then on top of that, he has to die on the cross, which is humiliating.
Yeah.
He's a son of God, and he's crucified between two common criminals.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They don't have the decency to put him up, on his own, whatever. If they say what it is, you're going to die with everybody else.
Right.
And he's the son of God. I think how Pilate put the sign, and the sign read "King of the Jews."
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you look at it, just kind of cut and dry as that was done to mock him.
Right.
That wasn't done to out of respect. It was done to mock him, to embarrass him.
Yes,
Isn't it funny how sometimes the greatest or the worst compliments or the worst insult somebody can give you can be also the best compliment they can give you?
Yeah.
They were mocking him, but in a way they were proclaiming him. He's like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
You call me that, but he's like, I'll receive that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So in verse 38, like I said, the sign was meant to mock him. And so we'll go ahead and skip back. And where is it? In verse 38. It says, there was a written notice above him which read, This is the King of the Jews. Verse 39, one of the criminals who hung there hurled insult to him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. He's disrespecting him again.
Right.
He's like, if you are what you say you are, save yourself and save us.
Right.
That was the guy on his left. This was the guy on his right says, he's a smart one. Check this out.
Yeah.
But the other criminal rebuked him. Because don't you fear, and this is the criminal talking to the other criminal. He's like, he's like, are you dumb or stupid? Like, why would you say that? He goes, this is the Son of God. He goes, don't you fear God, he said. Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly. We are getting what our deeds deserve. This man has done nothing. This guy on the right, he understands because this is the Son of God. He goes, you don't deserve this.
Right.
He's questioning, he goes, if you're the Son of God, he goes, you live a sinless life. He goes, me and this guy on your left and your right, we deserve this. We dug our own grave.
Right.
We did this to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so then verse 42, this is Jesus speaking. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you, this is the criminal speaking to Jesus. He goes, Jesus, remember me when you come to your kingdom. Jesus answered him, truly I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise.
Yeah.
I kind of relate this to verse 43 to verse 34, and we say, Father, forgive them for they don't know what they do.
Right.
If he can save a common criminal on the cross, then surely he can save us. Right? Or whatever you've done. I've talked to people at work or at school, people that I just meet, people. I mean, Pastor Watts would say that when I was younger. He's been saying that since the beginning of the church. Yeah, there's hurting people out there. And I think when you're younger, you kind of have this childlike innocence in a sense that you don't really know what's going on. And you grow up and you realize most things aren't what they seem.
Right.
So when I'm getting older and I'm getting the opportunity to talk to people and actually talk to somebody, I think sometimes when we come to church or we go to work or whatever, and we ask somebody, Mr. Rod, how you doing? It's just understood. He says good. How are you? And I say good too, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation, right? But if you really care for somebody, you're going to ask them how they're doing, and they're going to have the respect, and it's the mutual respect that you're going to actually say, you know what, maybe things aren't so great. And if they are, then by all means, share with them, hey, this has happened. I got a promotion at work or whatever it is. Yeah. You got to kind of, like I said, relationships are really important. You can't isolate yourself.
Yeah.
I talked to my dad, he said, Matt, how's work? And I can talk to him, you know what, I'll vent for an hour, at midnight. This customer did this, my boss did this, whatever the case is, right? You got to have that. It blows my mind how sometimes that I'm guilty of this too, is that we think that if we go on our own and we separate ourselves, that we'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And like Pastor Stephen said, he goes, Jesus had a team of 12. So what makes you think, the Son of God had a team of 12, what makes you think you can do it on your own?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how foolish am I?
Right. Right.
Another thing that I kind of got, praying about this and, just listening to it, thinking on it, reading on it. When he was talking to the criminal, when he said, for surely, I'll save you, you'll be with me in paradise. When he saved him, he was also forgiving him.
Right.
And when you're saved, you forgive. I think sometimes we separate the two. There's a word called it's called, the term is purification. It's used for dentists. So I heard this the other day. I was an orthodontist, and he said he had a guy come in and his teeth had been purified. So the word he used, and I looked at him like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that word means. I didn't go to school for 7 years for this. What does that mean? And so I asked him. He goes, the term purified means when one tooth has become two. I think we do that when it comes to saving and forgiving. We think, I'm saved, but I'm not forgiven my sins, and we get trapped in wherever we are.
Yeah.
Right? But we just saw that on the cross that you're saved, you're forgiven. They're one and the same. Right. There's no difference. Right. God sees no distinguishment. Just as God sees no distinguishment between sins. I think that's another thing our culture's kind of done, that we think okay, a little lie and a big lie. I'd rather do a little lie than a big lie. And the Bible says that God sees no distinguishment. A lie is a lie. Sin is sin. There's no difference, right? So go ahead and I'll continue to talk about about the cross. That Matthew, Mark, Luke, all these guys, all these disciples, they wrote their testament of the cross. But I think it's kind of funny how John was the only one that was there. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Go ahead and turn to John 19:25. I'll kind of give you some context about that. And I heard a story about this, or Pastor Stephen kind of gave an analogy per sense. You guys remember when you guys were in school and if the teacher wasn't there, you had a substitute, right?
Yeah.
Remember the substitute would call roll, right? So you'd be like, all right, Mr. Glenn, you'd be like, here, Miss Joyce, here. And if your friend wasn't there, then nobody would say anything. That's how they took roll, because they didn't know everyone's name, but the teacher did, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you just thinking he's like, Matthew, nothing. Luke, nothing. Then John kind of whispers stuff here. I don't want to proclaim it because I don't want to get in trouble like you are. You know what I'm saying? He's just low key, I'm here but I'm not.
Yep.
So in John 19:25, this again. We were just in Luke. This is John's testament, and we can kind of really go intimately into John's testament because he was actually there. You guys ever given yourself a nickname? Or has anybody ever given you a nickname throughout school, like a friend?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny. You got to love John because John calls himself Jesus' favorite. He called himself the one he loved.
Yeah.
He's self-proclaimed favorite. I'm God's favorite. I'm Jesus' favorite. I'm the only one that was there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A little ignorant or a little arrogant, but so be it. Self-proclaimed name. So here in John 19:25, it says, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. And can you imagine, just quick side note, if you're a parent, as a father, if you're a mother, can you imagine what it was like to see your son go through what he did? I mean, you carried him for the 9 months, and now he's carrying you. Can you imagine how hard that must have been?
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it. You got to just stand there. You got to man. Can you imagine what that's like? And that's got to be. I'm not a parent, but I have my sisters or even my parents and people that are really close. You can imagine what that's like. You can't do anything about it. You got to just watch.
Right.
I think a lot of us can relate, especially the parents when your kids are going through something, and you want to help them out. But you got to. Ultimately, you can't get involved. That's either between them and God, or they got to figure that stuff on their own, right?
Right.
And here Mary's watching Jesus. He's being crucified. He's embarrassed. He's humiliated. He's bleeding to death. Imagine the pain he's going through. That's brutal. The cross wasn't just made. It was a sign of humiliation, but the way it happened, obviously we all know the story that they put the nails through the wrist, one through the wrist, and then one through. They would combine the feet and they put it through the feet.
Right.
And the idea was it wasn't supposed to be a quick death. You were going to bleed because you had nails in your wrists and your feet, but the idea was it wasn't supposed to be quick.
Right.
It was supposed to be humiliating. And so what would happen is that you could lift yourself up, but you can only do that so much. And in a way, you were suffocating yourself by your own body weight.
Yeah.
Plus, you're out in the sun, you're sweating, you're going to be dehydrated. This and this. But ultimately, you're gonna suffocate yourself by your own body weight. So here, keep that in mind. I mean, Mary is watching her son go through this. And I'll just go ahead and continue to read. She says, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother, sister Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby him. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
The disciple whom he loved, the self-proclaimed favorite. He kind of gave himself a nickname. He goes, I'm Jesus' favorite, because I'm the only one who's here. And going back to to when they had the Last Supper, is that all these disciples, Jesus told them straight out, you're all going to bail. No one's going to be there. I mean, John was there, but in a sense he kind of wasn't. Because he didn't say anything. He didn't testify. He was like, I'm just going to keep low-key. Like I said earlier, when you're taking roll call, like nobody answered, but John's name came up, he kind of whispered here. He didn't want anybody to know, right?
Yeah.
So at the Last Supper, Jesus was telling him, he goes, you're all going to leave me. And Peter, of all people, Peter's like, I won't. I'll be here from the very end.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is when it came to Jesus being crucified, Peter was like, he didn't get going to the city. Because when it became scandalous or illegal to or disrespectful in a sense to stand with Jesus, Peter was gone.
Yeah.
They were all gone. He said, forget this.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how sometimes people will take and take and take and take and take, and as soon as they see, or as soon as you do something that they're not so much approving of, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's awful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They were all there. They were crowding them, and like I said earlier, the Bible says that the crowds when they walked in there were deafening. People wanted everything they could get from him.
Yeah.
But as soon as Jesus actually goes to what he was coming, he was born to do this. They just didn't see that. But as soon as he was there, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. No one's in sight.
Yeah.
Or John and his mother are, but everyone else, they're gone.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how Peter was the one he's like talking about, in front of everybody. I'll be there to the very end. Imagine Jesus like, dude, I know you're going to leave. Like, don't lie to me. Like, I know you're going to leave. Yeah. And Jesus is being crucified there. And he's got can you imagine all the thoughts or the temptation that's coming in? And he had the Bible says he has the power to send out 12 legions of angels.
Right.
He could have been gone like that. He's like, dude, forget it. I'm done. Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, Bible says that he told the disciples, he goes, stay awake and pray.
Yeah.
My dad has a thing. He goes, two things they both failed at miserably. They all fell asleep. They didn't pray. Right? You had two things to do and you couldn't even do that. Right? But that's a different story. But as he's praying, he goes, there's I forget which verse it is, but he goes, shall this cup pass from me. In other words, what he's saying, he goes, is there any other way we can do this?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he knows what's coming. He's not dumb. He's very aware of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And he's praying to God. He goes, Father, is there any other way we can do this?
Yeah.
Because I'm open to anything outside of this. But the Bible says that the verse next, he goes, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. We all know that story, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and go back and, or I'll refer to John 19:25. Sometimes the greatest testament of someone's loyalty is not what they will say, but what they will do.
Yes.
Again, Mary didn't say anything. She stood there. Again, she understood she couldn't do anything about it,
Right.
but she also understood what he was doing.
Right.
Again, Peter was saying a lot. He was talking loyalty, but when it came down to it, he was nowhere to be found. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I've had people like that in my life that they've talked a big game, but it's like when I actually needed you, they were nowhere to be found,
Right.
or they were too busy to help me out.
Oh yeah. That's right.
I think Andy Mineo, a guy, he's a Christian hip hop artist, and he has a song called "Hear My Heart," and the whole song's about his sister was born deaf, and he didn't. From the time he was born, his sister was older than him. And from the time he was born until I think he was 27, he never learned sign language. And that's pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's your sister. You would think he would take the time out to learn sign so you can properly communicate with her.
Right.
And the whole song, what it's really based around, he's kind of he's apologizing because he's like, forgive me. He's like, I'm sorry, I gave time to other people when I neglected my own blood.
Right.
Right? I think maybe it's human nature, or I may be wrong, but sometimes we neglect people that were actually there for us, and we give time to other people. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And we may not do it intentionally, but it's just we get caught up in I want to be here instead or there. Sometimes it's not fun to do what you're supposed to, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's what Pastor Stephen said. He goes, sometimes we don't see who's standing with us because we're so focused on who left us. Has anybody been there before?
Yeah.
And we can't even see what's right in front of our eyes, but we're so focused on what else is going on otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there too. I've had people leave me recently. and I can't even focus on who's actually been there for me.
Right.
People that have, stood by me since day one, right?
Yeah.
You can never, you don't have to raise your hand, but I think that's a common, thing we can all refer to. So in John 19, 26, 27, I love this part. I'll read 26. He goes, when Jesus saw his mother there, and again, the disciple whom he loved, he said to her, woman, here is your son. And verse 27, and to the disciple, which is John, goes, here is your mother. Even at the cross, it wasn't even about him.
Right.
You would think that'd be a pretty appropriate time to think, hey, I'm doing all this for you. The least you could do is, get me some water, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But he looks at Mary, his mother, and looks at John.
Yeah.
And he's not thinking about himself again. I mean, he's giving. He's nothing in return. Like I've said before, that when Jesus went to the cross, he had no guarantee that nobody would even receive it. He had no guarantee. He knew what he was doing, but he had, it's not like, you could, like the Bible says, it's a choice whether you receive God or not. No one forces you to.
Right.
It's your choice.
Yeah.
So, hypothetically speaking, let's just say that Jesus died for him. He was going to do it regardless, because he was that faithful.
Right.
But if nobody were to receive it, in a sense, you could look at it and say it was in vain. He had no way of knowing that anyone was going to receive him. But then again, he's at the cross, and he tells his mom, he goes, all right, take John as your son. John, take my mom as your mother.
Yeah.
He's thinking about other people. And again, that's the recurring theme here, is that fellowship, communion, relationships. If I was Jesus, speaking honestly, I couldn't even focus on who was in front of me. Like I said, we neglect people that are right in front of us when we think about other people. I mean, if you were Jesus, think about it. I would have been so focused on getting back at Peter and Judas. I would have not have been worried about John and my Mary being there. Right? For as Judas betrayed me, and Peter totally bailed.
Yeah.
And he's the one in front of everybody, and all the disciples, all the people that were there at the Last Supper. He's like, I'm going to be there for you for forever. I got you back.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're not, dude. Like, I know you're going to bail. I know you're going to neglect me. Don't. Just do us both a favor. Just be quiet. Eat the dinner. You know what I'm saying? Just don't, right?
Yeah.
It's just that just blows my mind, is that Peter it's like, you're going to tell the Son of God what you're going to do, or what you think you're going to do. People talk, it's like my mom would always say, to us growing up, is that if you're gonna talk the talk, walk the walk. I didn't really know what that meant until I got older, and I was like, okay, that's what she meant. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what she meant. You guys ever have those moments where someone will tell you something, you're like, oh, like, I get it now. And Pastor Stephen, in kind of the sermon that I heard recently, he talks about, how sometimes we can be, like, when we're driving, like, I guess I'll be cliche and say, let's just call it the road of life, okay? We'll just call it the road of life. When you're driving and something goes not the way you expected, it kind of throws you off, right? You might swerve, or you might go this way, or you might go this way, right? But when you're looking in reverse, and in that moment, you're going to ask, like, why did that even happen? You guys ever had those moments? Like I said earlier, you have all these ways if you think, okay, this is going to go this way, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be happily ever after. You know what I'm saying? And then life throws you a curveball, and it's you're like, oh. You have those moments, you're like, oh, that is not what I expected. I have no plan B. I don't know what I'm doing. You're kind of in this limbo, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying how, like, he used the analogy of, like, when you're dating somebody, and you can be, like, heartbroken at that moment, right?
Yeah.
You're devastated. You're like, man, this is awful. Like, God, we're so easy to blame God. Like, why'd you do this to me? What happened? Why? What are you doing? And he has another thing. It's called the song called Tug of War, and he has a verse in it, and he goes, the whole song's about, he's like arguing with God, and he goes, you want me to break it with my girl? He goes, no, that's too much. And he's talking to God. He goes, you don't know what's best for me. You don't understand my complexities. And that's pretty. It's hard. It's a harsh statement, but it's so true.
Yeah.
You guys ever argued with God on stuff like that? We're like, you don't know what's best. You know what you're talking about. Just get out of my life, or get out of this part of my life, and I'll do me in this sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? You're gonna tell God he doesn't know what he's doing. Like Peter told Jesus, he goes, I'm gonna be there. He's like, Jesus, like, no, you're not. Like, again, do us a favor, just don't say anything about it. And so going back to what Pastor Stephen said, he says that you can, in that moment, it's like you have those oh moments, like, oh, like what do I do now?
Yeah.
But he said, looking in reverse, you can look back on somebody, you see, like, again, going back to dating, you could, like, look at someone's picture 10 years later, you're like, oh, thank God. Like, thank you for saving that. But now you're thankful. But in the moment, you're like, mad at God, what'd you do that? You know what I'm saying? You guys have those moments you're like, thank God. Now you're happy with God. You're not mad at him anymore. You're like, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it now.
Right.
I was telling my mom this the other day, my parents the other day, like, I think every teenager goes through this, that you have those, like, my parents are ruining my life. Like, they don't want me to have any, you know what I'm saying? Because we're growing up doing that. Like, my parents are out to get me. They don't want me to have any fun. They're just mad because they're old and I'm young. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that, right? So I was talking to my mom the other day, and I was like, even there's certain things that they do now that make no sense to me. I mean, when I talk about it, Lexi, she's with my grandparents now, but we were all talking, like, man, mom and dad would do stuff. We're just like, that's dumb. Like, why would you do that? Like, I know, like, when we were in California, they wouldn't let us go out. They wouldn't let us go outside without parental supervision. And that used to drive, even at Oklahoma, that would drive us nuts. Like, why? Like, you guys are inside the house, we're in the front yard, what's the big deal? Right? And so when we got older, we learned that in California there would be Amber Alerts a lot where we lived. So now I can look back and look, okay, that's why they did that. You know what I'm saying? And my mom, there's stuff that you would do in high school and whatnot. I'm just like, why? Like, why? I'm 16, I'm grown. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm grown, man, I do what I want. You know what I'm saying? Just total off base, whatever. But I can look back on it and like, okay, that's why she did what she did.
Right.
Or that's why my dad said what he said.
Yeah.
But this is why they acted a certain way. Or this is why they said what they said in that certain situation. They would say stuff to me and I'm just like that's harsh. Like, just real life, but it's harsh. It's like, why would you say that to me? I get hurt my feelings, and why would you say that? But a lot of times those statements would be those things that would kind of wake me up, like, all right, get yourself together, get up, keep going.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Right.
I think a lot of times, we'll go through stuff and God will put stuff in our lives and we're just like, dang. Like, say stuff like that's really harsh or things that'll happen that's, brutal. Things you don't want to go through. I know my dad said Sunday that if he would have known what he was going to go through when we got here, he said most people, he's like, speaking very honestly, I wouldn't have done it. If I would have saw the whole big picture when we got here, I would have been like, dude, forget it, hands out, I'm done. That's another thing is that Jesus saw the big picture today. He knew what he was doing when he came down here.
Right.
And he still did it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Most of us, again, honestly, if I was Jesus, like my dad said Sunday, it would have been a very sad day for everybody. I would have been like, forget it, dude. Like, I'm going to send my 12 legions of angels out. You guys don't deserve it. Like, forget it. I'm done. I'm calling it quits. I'm out. Forget it.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, in a closing statement, I'll close with this. Something that's been on my heart again and again and again, especially recently, is that you can't do everything on your own. I'll be honest, I'm prideful by nature, so I'll come to you when I'm like at my absolute lowest. But it's like, my mom said this to me the other night, and she goes, why do you have to wait till you get to the lowest, then you come back up? My dad said Sunday that, he referred to, it was Peter walking on the water, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, excuse me. So Peter came out and he walked out on water, and Jesus, he's looking at while he's looking at Jesus, he's walking on water.
Right.
The Bible says he gets distracted, he looks at the storm, he gets scared, and then he starts to drown.
Right.
And Jesus, of course, chilling, he walks over there, he picks him up, and he tells him, he goes, man, you had it. Because you were right there, you had it. He goes, what, why'd you lose faith?
Yeah.
I think the same thing can happen in, it's a relationship. Sometimes you can, even with God, Pastor Stephen says that, he entitled the message that, I kind of went off of, because it's called Complete the Cross. You guys should really check it out. It's a tremendous word. But he says that, again, a relationship don't always have to be with your husband or, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, spouse, whatever, sisters, brothers, parents, whatever. It's just, but to dish it out this way, you have to receive it this way.
Yeah.
I never saw the cross like that. When you said it, I was like, damn, that really makes sense.
Yeah.
You can give, if you're dishing it out this way, but you've received nothing, what are you really giving out? Your own knowledge? Like,
Right.
in my 18 years of vast knowledge that I have, no. It's a quick, funny story. I remember there was one day, I was, maybe, 13 or 14 years old, and it's the summertime, right? So I have to mow the lawn. That's kind of the guy's job, right? So I'm mowing the lawn. So I go to my dad, I'm like, why do I have to mow the lawn? I'm just asking him, like, oh, why do I have to do it? And he looks at me and goes, what do you mean, like it was the dumbest question you ever heard. What do you mean, why do you have to do can't you make the girls do it? And he goes, they do other stuff. And I was like, all right, that's fair. I said, well, what do I get? Like, all right, the girls do this, and I mow the lawn, but what do I get out of it? And he looks at me kind of, he does like, Mariah, she'll do the I'll do the look later, but he does like one of these things, like, he drops his glasses and he looks at you like this. So I'm looking at him like, what? Like, what do I get out of it? I don't get paid for it. And he looks at me and goes, Matt, he goes, you get food, shelter, water, gas, and I was like, okay, that's a pretty good deal. Like, I'll give 2 hours of my time to go mow the lawn. But anyway, my whole thing is, and as an ending statement was that sometimes that, again, speaking very honestly, is that we isolate ourselves, right?
Yes.
And then we want to come back to something, and you feel like you got to give something. I think we all have people like that in our lives that we feel responsible for. We feel like we have to perform for. A lot of times that's like I tell my parents the other night is that I'm in a spot right now where it feels like I'm just giving. But if you don't take the time to actually you got to receive something first before you can give it.
Right.
If you're not receiving anything, what are you giving? Again, like my vast 18 years of knowledge. No. I'm not dumb, but I'm sure I'm not, anywhere near, what some, older people have got, So again, ending statement. This is kind of what I got out of this whole thing, or my revelation per se. If God is involved in any relationship, it's not about what you can get, but what about you can give. And I kind of got that, reading that last verse, is that, Jesus, he's crucified there. And imagine the pain he's going through. And he's in flesh, so he's feeling everything. It's not like he's just sitting there just chilling. No, he's going through this thing. He's really, he's feeling everything. And he has the mind awareness of just the faithfulness, the love, the compassionate, to look at John and say, hey, all right, take my mother as yours. And he tells his mother to take John as your son. It's right there. Like the guys, Cleopas, they were going back to Emmaus. It was in community, it was in fellowship that they found out. That's when they realized Jesus didn't die just because. He was humiliating, he did this for us. You got to receive it before you can give it. Amen? Amen. All right, Dad, you're up.
Good word, young man.
Good.
Oh, praise the Lord.